Hi, and welcome to another episode of Real Estate with Howard Drukarsh. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a co-founder, along with Arthur Bartram and Ron Petticord, of the largest real estate brokerage in Canada. That's the largest independent real estate brokerage in Canada with over 5,300 salespeople. Along with that, my career has also been, I've been a member of the board of directors of the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board. I've been a member of the board of directors of the Real Estate Council of Ontario, and I also sit on the board of the company I co-founded. If you're interested in finding out more about me, one of the episodes on the podcast is called Intro, and you can find out all about my journey, my successes, my failures, and how I ended up where we are today. This isn't your typical real estate podcast. We'll be inviting to interview real estate agents, real estate brokers, people in pre-construction, whether that be developers, people marketing pre-construction, media people, people in finance, like our guest today, also people who are just interesting, and we think that the audience will enjoy their interviews. And the whole idea of the podcast is about how do people overcome the problems they have to become successful. If you're watching this and you're in real estate, you know this is not an easy business. And if you're watching this and not in real estate, ask anybody. This is not an easy business. But the people you'll see on our podcast are people that have found ways to overcome setbacks, failures, roadblocks, rejection, all of the negative things, and yet stay on a trajectory to be successful. And for that, we think there's a real interest in how do people do it. My own situation is before starting the company, the brokerage I was in, I had been a salesperson for 20 years. Once we started the company, as we grew, I became the manager of our branches as we opened branches. Then for a few years, I was also president and broker of record of the company. And one of the things about the business is the important thing is the salespeople, the hiring, the interviewing. And over the time that I did that, and while I was active in the company, I hired over 1,000 people, is the new people. The new people, I got a sense after a while of who would do well. And I think, to kind of make it clear in my mind what it was energy, enthusiasm, being authentic. That seemed to be really important, and they did well. People who transferred, that was just very, very flattering for our company, which was relatively new, and people were leaving longer, more established brands because they felt the value was better with us. So that's a bit more about me. Now we're going to talk about my guest. Joe, hold on. Tell me again how to say it correctly.
Digiambattista.
That's right, not like it reads. Joe Digiambattista is in the mortgage business, the mortgage finance business. He's a really interesting guy with a very interesting background. So, Joe, let me start with, how did we first meet? Do you remember that?
Oh, I think we met in one of the offices, no? In one of the right at home office presentation sessions.
I think that was it. And how long ago was that?
That would have been roughly 2 years ago.
Okay, so that's about what I was thinking. One of the things that I found with myself and the guests that we have on our podcast is the influence of the early life, family life. Things like what their mother or their father did, how they grew up. Do you want to talk a bit about your early life?
Sure. My parents were immigrants from Italy. Mm-hmm. So when they came, they started out with a little bit of a language issue. We immigrated. I was born in Sudbury, Ontario, so I'm a Northern Ontario boy, mm-hmm. And we moved probably 9 months after I was born to a little town outside of Elliott Lake. So I was able to grow up with a heavy Italian influence and a heavy Northern Ontario influence, mm-hmm. Which is very family oriented, very focused around food and the table and holidays, and we had spaghetti and turkey at the same time, so it was a great upbringing. I had a great childhood.
It's interesting. I grew up at Keele and Wilson, and when I grew up there, it was heavily an Italian neighborhood, and it was great. I mean, all the same things you talk about. Great neighbors. I learned a lot of Italian, most of which I can't say on air, but it was fun.
And we're a very social bunch, whether you're from up north in Ontario, or whether you're from a rural part of Italy. We're a very social group. That's the way we were raised, to be very social, and try to look at the positive. So it really opened up some opportunities
And I know you've
looking
had,
at life like that.
sorry, I know you've had a really successful career, and so how important was luck, persistence, hard work? How would you rate those things in your career?
Yeah, luck is it comes and goes. So I think persistence really is the only factor that you really need to focus on. And when I say persistence, I mean persistence with hard work, with dedication, with commitment. You got to do some of the things that nobody else wants to do in order to get it done.
In the finance business, I've always felt this: as hard as the real estate business is in terms of competition, the mortgage financing business, in my opinion, is even more competitive. Am I right? Is that a
Yeah, I think you're right, but I think one of the big well, I don't want to say this without um, I think one of the big differences in our business is there's a lot of people that are in the business that aren't familiar with all the rules and regulations around financing,
mhm.
and I think a lot of the people in our business don't have the social skill set and the service commitment to be successful. So in a way, that kind of helps the
Yeah.
ones that are service oriented, committed to their business, focused on trying to do some things that other people don't want to do. I think I look at that as opportunity versus challenge.
It's interesting. I had the same when before I got into real estate. My wife and I liked going to open houses, and we would go and I'd meet agents, and I come from a marketing background, sort of let's say a more um, sophisticated part of the marketing world. And I thought to myself, if these people can make a living, and now you want to work at it more professionally and deal with people differently, as your point is, there's probably more opportunity. So just like you, I thought this would be good business to get into, and that turned out to be right. And it's just like any business. There are people that come and go, and there are people that make a career out of it. And
Right.
obviously you've
And
done
and
well.
when you look at mortgages, there's different facets, right? You've got residential, you've got non-residential, you've got qualified, you've got non-qualified, you've got all the commercial. So we do everything. So when you provide that full spectrum of service to a group of people that have access to that kind of product, you end up seeing a lot of different stuff. So it gives us the ability to be a little bit more diverse, which really helps with the keeping the job exciting.
One of the things about being entrepreneurial, which I think would apply to the way that you operate as well, to a large degree, is the concept of risk, and how comfortable you are with risk. How do you evaluate that in your own career, the moves you've made, things like that?
Well, the part of it is I think risk for me is something I've had to deal with just because of where I've been in point in time. When I exited corporate, the next question I asked myself was, so what do you want to do? And what I didn't like about corporate was that at every point you're only as good as who you work for. I kind of like thinking that I'm a good boss, so I kind of like working for me. So it kind of pushed me in that category. So yeah, I'm risk adverse as much as the next guy, but when it comes to making a decision based on what are the next 10 years are going to look like, I think you got to push through that fear and make that leap.
In our business, that is in the real estate business, one of the goals, and I tell people this when I was interviewing new people, and they'd ask me, how do I be successful? How do I define that? To me, success in real estate is a referral business where you're getting people calling you because you did a good job for someone else. The other part of that is the loyalty of clients, because to me, that was the other real reward, where people could deal with anybody and they would contact me because we'd had a good relationship. How do you evaluate loyalty in your career?
Well, I think it's what we've done in especially since I've been non-corporate for 6 years, and we have some really exciting relationships that we're focused on that are driving very very decent volumes. And I think it's really partnerships and relationship
Hmm.
fueled by service and option. So we need partnerships. We need to continuously work at building those relationships, adding value. And I think the only way we can do that is to continually improve our service and make sure it's rewarding, and we're giving something back to the referral sources. I think we try to do that through education and service, and so far it's working.
as I know, and as you talked about, you had a corporate career, then you went into an entrepreneurial career. In your business life, who have been your biggest influences?
You know what? It's going to sound a little corny, but I really do think it's got to be my wife number one, and then probably my kid number two. And the reason I say that is because there were certain things I wanted to achieve, and they gave me I think the backbone as well as the opportunity to pursue those challenges.
Yeah, I think obviously having support at home is critical when you're in a career like you have and like I had, because there's too many ups and downs. If you don't have that
Oh,
support, it's I don't think it's doable. So obviously, anybody who's doing well has great support, in my opinion. Um,
absolutely.
why
I
did
think,
you?
Howard, if I can just answer the
Sure.
second part of that question, the
Yeah.
other thing I learned early was that when I was at the bank, I was at CIBC for 20 years. You could pick up the phone and call one of 40,000 people if you were stuck on an issue and have someone on your team help you. And then when you go out into the world on your own, you don't have that same kind of, $40,000 people employee base to connect with.
Hmm.
So I think that one of the most important things that we were able to do early was build a team of people that kind of replicated our corporate environment.
Well, and I know from and anybody who's watching this who is in a corporate environment, it's not easy. I mean, I never really was. My career was a small marketing company, advertising. Nothing big corporate. And when I used to go to events where I represented the company and people, I'd meet with people with great business cards, and they were saying, tell me about a career in real estate, because the corporate world's not easy. And I have a lot of respect for people that do it because it's not easy, but I also have a lot of respect for people like you that decide, I want to control, my life. It's not a sure
Well,
bet.
it wasn't that. It wasn't that. It wasn't like a prophecy. Like I was at the bank for 20 years, and I left the bank to go to a startup that just opened up publicly, and was giving a lot of incentive to leave the bank.
I see.
But that was right at 2007. It was the summer of 2007, and then we hit the credit crunch that happened that September.
Yeah.
And with a monoline lender, everything was done through mortgage-backed securities and your investment banker, and that whole world changed like 4 months after I left.
Ah.
I was able to stay with them to try to see if we could get it off the ground by I think about 5 years. 2012 is when I left finally. And at that point, I said to myself, well, I didn't want to do that again.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be reliant on Deutsche Bank to know that I have a job. I think I can do it on my own and not have to worry about those outside forces. And
You
that
and
kind of pushed me into that
you
into
and
that category. I didn't really just jump into it. I was kind of pushed a little bit.
well, you and Trump don't want to be relying on Deutsche Bank. So, but I think you have a better relationship. Why did you choose the mortgage or I guess the mortgage business, the banking business? What motivated you to get into that?
Well, that one goes all the way back, Howard, now to 1983. I was just coming out of school, and I was working part time at Safeway back then, and I had a few colleagues and friends that I went to school with that got into third party origination with some of the lenders that were just starting to do broker business.
Hmm.
This would have been in the mid 80s.
Hmm.
So I kind of gravitated to it because it was a new industry. Financial services, numbers was always interesting to me.
Hmm.
But I focused primarily for the majority of my corporate career in third party originations. And third party originations at the onset in the 80s and the 90s were small companies that were involved in this. They weren't, none of the big banks were touching brokers, talking to mortgage brokers, et cetera, et cetera. So during that transition from, let's say, 1990 to about 2000, we were able to bring that broker model into some of the bigger banks. And then as a result, the expertise that I had in the third party origination market kind of dovetailed into a career with the bank in this new endeavor for them, and it worked out well.
Hmm. Obviously, you've had a great career, and it's always a pleasure to meet people who have overcome all the challenges that you can have in a lifetime trying to become successful. But here's a good question: with everything you've done, do you have any regrets?
Yeah, I should have did this when I was in my mid-30s. Yeah,
Okay.
when I was in my mid-30s,
Yeah.
I was very heavily influenced by the brand. I was very heavily influenced by the titles and the, the benefits, the expense accounts,
Yeah.
the whole bank structure was appealing to a guy that was in his 30s to his 40s, and we were successful. We were the first bank. My group was the first bank to introduce declines to alternate lenders from the banking system in order to retain the relationship with the consumer and the referral source. So that, we were able to do some innovative things within the banks as well in the late 90s. So it was a great time to be a part of that corporate structure. But then things change.
Right.
Lending became more in tune with box style U.S. lending, where if you didn't fit this box, then it got moved
Mm.
into another box, and some of the expertise that you needed in credit didn't become as important. And it started to get filled up with technology and process, and it just wasn't as entrepreneurial as it was I'd say in the late 90s. I think from
Mm.
the late 90s to 2010 and 2012, there was a radical change in banking in terms of mortgage origination, and it became more risk focused. There was a whole push at the banks for global reputational risk, and that became reflective in their processes and in their underwriting. So it kind of changed that market. And me being a third party originator, specifically in non-conforming, it was just I think my tenure at the bank just kind of saw its way through.
Um, what would you give to people who wanted to get into the business now? What kind of advice if someone came to you say, Joe, listen, I want to get into your business? What would you say?
Absolutely, it's a great business. It's I'm doing this. I've been doing mortgages since 1983, and I learned something this morning that I didn't know. So I think it's very fulfilling from that standpoint. But it's work. You
Hmm.
don't think you're gonna turn on your computer and deals are gonna land in your lap. You need to work at getting business, and then once you work at getting the business, you got to work at keeping the business.
Right.
So it's a double-edged sword, and you got to keep it sharp all the time.
Okay, and here's the question I like to hold on to till the end because when I first got it myself, it was a good question. I thought I'd like to ask the same one. So, Joe, what would you tell your 20-year-old self if you could tell him something?
I would tell my 20-year-old self to get out of bed, go to work, and don't stop until you've achieved what you wanted to achieve.
Yeah.
There's no shortcuts. There's no easy way. You get out and you plod and you plod and you plod, and if you do the right things, there will definitely be rewards at the end of the day.
Okay. Joe, that's our show in terms of the having you as a guest. Joe Digiambattista, got it.
Got it. Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you, Howard.
If someone wants to reach you, where can they reach you?
Yeah, I'm very easy. 416-624-3643 is my cell number. Joe D at pololoans.com is my email.
Okay, great. Joe, thank you very much for being a guest. Like everybody says now, stay safe, stay healthy. We'll see you next time.
And be well, Howard. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Joe.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. We'd like to thank our guest, Joe Digiambattista, for joining us today. And if you enjoyed the show, please like, comment, and subscribe. You can reach us on the internet at rewithhd.com, or you can also email us, which we'd love to hear from you. And to email us, it's info@rewithhd.com. So thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next week. Stay safe and be kind. Thanks.